Talk to me about that because I know we were having our pre-podcast interview. You talked to me about the Vipassana, and I said, well, it's funny because my Reiki friend, Katarina, she was the one that actually texted me that information. She's like, you need to go to one of these retreats. And I looked at it and I'm like, 10 days silent retreat. I mean, I could be silent, I think, for 10 days, maybe, because I kind of have on and off tried something like that, but you still talk a little bit here and there. And I'm like, 10 days silent, like no speaking. I'm like, my God, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
And I actually did sign up for an October one. I'm on the wait
Oh,
list for this
okay.
October. So I'm hoping to get in because I
Oh,
feel
for
like that
this
is one of my
October.
next steps. Yes, this October.
Oh
So I'm
my gosh. Well, you have to
hoping.
call me before you go because I have some stuff I need to share.
Yeah, yeah,
Some off camera.
definitely. Please.
So the meditation part itself was, it was very difficult. Like I had gotten up to like 2 hours a day at
Mm-hmm.
home meditating because I'm like, okay, I need to be able to sit for any extended period of time before I jump into this. And it
Right.
was, I can't remember if it was 12 or 14 hours a day that you're meditating, but it's
Mm-hmm.
large blocks of time where you then like you eat in between there's a walking path, but then you're basically going back and sitting again for hours. And
Mm-hmm.
it just takes a toll on your body. You're just aching, like headache. Um, the voices in your head, like it's anything but silent. It just gets loud and you're
Damn
trying
those
to,
voices in your head.
oh, I can't shut them up, right?
I know.
So it's just like the first 3 days were different than the fourth day on as far as the meditation technique.
Right.
Um, but what happens actually? So the first 3 days you're anapana breathing and you're just focusing on the air coming in and going out of your nostrils. And that's all
Right.
you're focusing on for 14 hours a day for 3 days. And in the evening, they roll this old TV in, and there's a video you watch of this gentleman. His name's S.N. Goenka. He's the father of Vipassana meditation, and he's no longer on this earth. But he talks to you about the practice and about what you might be feeling. So it's kind of a little summary of the day, which was awesome because it's the only sounds you hear, besides a
Right.
gong occasionally to tell you where you should be.
Right.
Um, but it was really helpful. Then on the fourth day all the way to the 10th, you do what's Vipassana meditation, which is totally different. So you're focusing on 1 inch squares all over from the tip of your head, and you're waiting until you feel like any energy movement, any
Mm.
vibration, anything. You move to the next space, you move to the next space, you move to the next space, head to toe, back up again for days
Oh,
and
wow.
days. So on the, before I had my awakening experience, on the sixth day, I had a dark night experience first. And I
Mm-hmm.
thank God that I read about this before because I would have been scared to death had I not known and been mentally prepared somewhat. So, and afterwards, when everybody's talking at the end, some people had some really crazy ones. It was interesting. But I went to bed that night and it felt different. It felt weird. Like my body energy felt strange that, like, part of that day. So, and the reason I remember so specifically about every day is because I have a terrible memory and I was so worried that I was going to forget things that I
Right.
actually took some like little cocktail napkins from the dinner area and I found a pen and I was just like writing a little heinous notes to my napkin notes just
Oh
so
my
I would
God.
remember what I was feeling, what I was
Mm-hmm.
doing. So my dark night was like, I was like in a kind of a conscious sleep or like twilight sleep. And I just like there were just spiders
Oh
everywhere
God.
and like
Mm-hmm.
crawling on me, crawling all over my face and then like coming out of my ears, coming out of my, and
Oh,
I'm like, okay, like I go in the bathroom, I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like,
oh my
this isn't
God.
real.
You're
This
like,
isn't
what did I get
real.
myself into?
I know. Like, holy crap. So I go back to bed and I'm feeling them and I'm just like constantly, and I woke up
Oh,
in the morning. I actually had some scratches on my face because all night long I was just
oh
doing this,
no.
getting spiders off of me that were not there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was weird. It was a little bit unnerving, but because I was talking myself through it, I literally was like, you're okay. it's okay. It's like
Mm.
it'll be morning. You'll be meditating soon. It's
You were
fine. Just
soothing
go home.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next day I went to, um, it was day 7 of sitting, and I'm in meditation, and I was doing the regular thing like I had been doing, but all of a sudden something was just different. And I felt like my heart like broke open. It's so hard to describe, but I completely just disappeared from this space. And it was the most overwhelming, like just all encompassing engulfment of love and just spirituality and light and beauty and just so much love radiating. And I can't even say like pouring over me, because there was not a me. I was one with this feeling.
Right.
And I, I, could not have dreamt this up. Like, there's no way that I could have experienced something like this if was not happening to me in that moment.
Right.
And I have no idea how long it lasted. I just know that like when I finally was aware that I was sitting there again,
Mm-hmm.
like tears are streaming down my face. You
Mm.
know when you've been crying for a while and you get that like
Yeah.
the hitches?
Yeah.
I was
Mm-hmm.
doing that. I'm like, oh my God, have I been stopped? Like, have I been sitting here doing this for 2 minutes or for an hour? I had no idea.
Wow.
But it was just the most amazing feeling.
Mm.
And I uh, I was like, I I mean, I was a pretty meh spiritual believer. I seriously went to this retreat just for stress relief. And I went to church. I was raised Catholic, and I went to church,
Yeah.
and I went, I did the occasional thing, and then I'd get angry because they're talking about politics or who to vote, who to vote for. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And then
That's
I would
not
leave
what
for
this
a
is about.
while. Exactly. But this
Isn't there
was
like a
just
saying
like,
that says that you don't talk about religion or politics, especially not in the same
yes,
conversation or
exactly.
something?
So it was just an unbelievable experience. And I did not have words for it then. I didn't know it was an
Yeah.
enlightening experience. Um, but when I came home, I mean, I was completely different when I came home. The
Well,
work that I had been like so bogged down and dealing with like
mhm.
crushing negative stuff, I just saw these people in a totally different light. And I'm like, they can't help it. They're like trapped in their own stories.
Yeah, that is true.
And it made me have like this completely different counselor approach to the work. Like before I was super hard and fast, like you broke this rule, you knew you broke
Yeah.
the rule, here's the consequence. And although they still had the consequence, I was like, I need to help them make better choices. And
Hmm.
even my relationship with the people changed. Like if I'd see them again, they would be like, oh, I was hoping you weren't my hearing officer again, so you wouldn't know. Like it just changed my relationships. It changed the work environment. It was 8 year crazy,
Yeah. So
complete
what do you
change.
think was the most challenging aspect of your transformational journey, I guess, like during, I guess when you went to the meditation retreat and then let's go there. Let's go to that meditation, those 10 days. What was
Okay.
it the most challenging? Because I know the silence and then sitting, but then you had other awakening stuff. So what was what was the most challenging for that journey?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So the most challenging thing for me in the beginning, it was the quieting the voices in your head. But even more so, they got aggressive because there was no outlet to be annoyed, right?
Right.
So like, here's an example. I write about this in my book and I feel terrible. Like I was the judgiest person. So they had fabulous food. So I'm in line waiting for our meal, like on lunch. It was the first day. And this woman just, I mean, and I'm with 32 women, and then the men are in a completely different, you never
Right.
see them. And I'm waiting in line, and this woman just comes barreling toward me and like
Mm.
bumps up against me and gets in front of me in line. And I'm like, oh my, I'm like, what a bee? I'm like, what just happened? Is she
Right.
completely, you know, unaware, or why'd she do that? Does she have a problem with me? It was so much ego stuff that
Mm.
was just like pounding away at me. And then when I saw her, I'd be like, I don't like her now. I don't even know her.
Oh
And
my
I have
God.
this judgment
Yeah.
of her already, which I was
Mm-hmm.
like, that's so natural in your everyday life. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you have like bad feelings about that person,
Oh yeah.
and you don't know them. You don't know their situation. You don't know anything about it.
Exactly.
And so that was hard for me because so then like say I'd come in for the next meal and she was sitting where I usually sit. And
Mm.
I'm like, really? Like, is she sitting there on purpose? And all of these stories I'm making up in my head, it was ruining my day and it was taking away from my experience because I was
Mm.
there to try to find calm and peace and
Right.
really meditate deeply. And I'm worried about this woman that I don't know that sat in this chair. Like, it was absurd. So I finally got to a point, I want to say like maybe the third day, I'm like, I had a serious self-talk. I was like, you are freaking wasting your time worrying about this stuff that does not even matter. You need to get your head in the game because I wasn't going to have this opportunity again to be able to
Mm-hmm.
have 10 days off work in such a high stress job and be able to
Right.
just come and be off the grid. My husband was watching my kids. Like, I was like, I won't be able to do this again. Do
Yeah.
not blow this. And that was a huge hurdle for me, Jacqueline. Like,
Mm-hmm.
once I got past that, I knew that things would be different. And
Right.
that was my initial biggest challenge. So that was huge.
Yeah, yeah, because
Um,
it's like the universe does that, universe, source, God, whatever you want to call it. It tends to do those kind of things. It's kind of like you're trying something like you were there, you had that little situation with that lady, and because we are so programmed to judge everybody and always say, go outside of ourselves to blame somebody for how they're behaving when we don't really know what was it. So we go inside of us, and then we're like, wait a second, and it took you like 3 days to say, you know what, I'm not giving her my power. I'm not gonna keep doing
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
We're right here. I gotta be present. This is my moment. And you did amazing because some people would just get up and go and just say, I'm done. Like, I can't do this. God is telling me that I shouldn't be here, let's say.
Yeah.
Some people will go down that way, but you said no. I only have 10 days. I work in a high, stress job. I have kids. My husband's taking care of the kids. I gotta like really, just focus on me and do what I need to do. And that was beautiful that you were able to kind of catch that because not a lot of people can, especially if you've never been awakened or
Yeah.
conscious. You know what I mean? It becomes very such a hard, hard thing to do sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that the reason that I caught that
Hmm.
was not it was not yet my spiritual journey because I hadn't had my spiritual journey. But I had read a little bit about how thinking is different than thought and how we
Hmm.
just have thoughts that come all the time we can't control. But it's what we start thinking about those thoughts. We place judgment on them. We let ego get involved.
Yeah.
That's what creates all of our misery, right? And all of our pain because we're
Hmm.
thinking all of these scenarios. And because I had done a good amount of reading on that before, like months before, but I
Yeah.
remembered it. And I was like, no, exactly
Wow.
what you said. I was like, I'm not going to give someone my power and I'm going to come back into this with a completely different attitude, a new day, and I'm not going to waste my time.
That
And
is
thank
so
God I
beautiful.
did because I never would have gotten to where I
No,
was had
I'm
I
so
not.
glad that you were able to, and that is so beautiful. Now, what do you think was your turning point that made you realize that you needed this change in your life? And I know you said you were stressed at work, all these things, but what was that turning point? Because there's always that like little light bulb or something that turns on and it says, you know what, I that you needed this, you were able to, and
Not going to waste my time.
that
And
is
thank
so
God I
beautiful.
did because I never would have gotten to where I
No,
was had
I'm
I
so
not.
glad that you were able to, and that is so beautiful. Now, what